Let's return to schools, shall we? Unions are urging the government to keep the option of pupils wearing masks in England's classrooms under review. The Scottish Government expected to make a decision on the issue later today after the World Health Organisation said that children aged 12 and over should be wearing them. Justine, the former Education Secretary and founder of the Social Mobility Pledge, joins us now live on the programme. Ms Greening, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you very much for being with us. I'm just wondering, do you agree with the assessment of the Prime Minister, the Education Secretary, that the schools are safe to reopen in England next week?
I think it is time to see children and young people back at school. I think that losing 6 months of education is far too long, and so young people need to be back in education. I do also, though, think that the government should be open to looking at what more steps can be taken to ensure that children can go back safely. And so I think if face masks can be part of that and are a sensible measure, then they should be considered.
Yeah, it was a point that I put to your former colleague in the Cabinet, Alok Sharma, just a few minutes ago, that even if the centre doesn't mandate the use of face coverings across schools in England and Wales, surely there would be wiggle room enough to allow teachers and pupils the opportunity to wear them if they so chose.
I think there is. I think the other question, though, is making sure that government is shaping and leading the decisions that schools are taking on the ground and giving clarity and advice that can put confidence back into an education system that badly needs it. So what we really want to see, I think, now is this overall plan from the government of not only how it can reopen full-time education for every young person safely, but also, crucially, how it's going to ensure that young people, particularly less privileged ones who've been most disadvantaged by the school shutdown, how it's going to help them catch up. And that won't happen overnight, but it's absolutely vital that there's a strong plan in place to enable that to happen. And then finally, the contingency planning. We are likely to see, as we've seen in Scotland, when schools open, some needing to take steps as they detect COVID cases. And so again, parents and students and teachers want a strong plan in place for how we're going to respond when those moments happen, so that they have the confidence that there's an overall plan for getting education back on track in England.
Given your view then, Ms Greening, of the use of face masks in school, I wonder what your assessment is of the claim made by a number of your colleagues that the teaching unions have been playing politics in all of this.
I think there's been finger-pointing on all sides that's been very unhelpful. I think parents are frankly fed up of political game playing on education and really want to see all stakeholders in this working together, whether it's ministers shaping a plan, whether it's the teaching profession. I think really, of course, there are going to be problems. Of course, this is going to be challenging, but they are issues that need to be confronted and got over. What we cannot have is a continued debate and an argument about schools reopening. What we need are people to come together around what the solutions are so that we can get children back to school. It is unacceptable that we are on the cusp of September and a new term, and there are still significant questions about how we're going to help get schools reopened and how we're going to allow children to catch up. As we all know, we have one shot at education. These children need government and the teaching profession and unions working together to make sure we can get their education restarted again. I know there's been a huge amount of work done on the ground in schools around the country. We need to make sure now that ministers are bringing forward that overarching plan that can help ensure that there's confidence that there's a plan in place to get schools open again.
Ms Greening, your work after Cabinet has had a real focus on the disadvantaged students. And I wonder, therefore, what you make of the mistakes that were made time and again by the government on A-levels, on GCSEs, on BTECs, all of which seem to have affected the disadvantaged most.
I think we've seen levelling down happening. And that is the exact opposite of what I've been campaigning for so much of my political career. We have to level up Britain. It was an imperative before COVID. Because of the impact of COVID, it's now absolutely vital. And I think the government now needs to bring forward a levelling up plan for the UK. What I'm also saying is we need to recognise that if exams are disrupted, then it's time that the government took a leaf out of employers' books and started looking at children's potential and talent beyond purely a narrow measure that exam grades give us. And I think for both universities and apprenticeships and employment opportunities, this really is a chance to understand more differently how we define talent, to have a wider definition of talent, and then to make sure, crucially, that for those increasing numbers of young people staying in education, which is a good thing, that we have an economy generating those high-skilled, strong career roles for them when they come out of those universities and when they come out of higher education over the coming years. That's what a levelling up strategy means for Britain. I'm really excited about the fact that people don't want things to go back to normal. They do want to see significant change in this country.
Sure.
What they want to see now is a plan of how this moment is going to be used as a moment for change, and how the government's going to get a grip, get a plan, and bring forward a levelling up strategy.
Justine Greening, always nice to have you on the programme. Thanks for joining us.